Before he was a monster, he was a genius. And before he was a genius, he was a broken child. Dr. Robert Bruce Banner's transformation into the Hulk didn't begin with a gamma explosion. It began much earlier, in the shadows of his past. Born to Brian and Rebecca Banner, Bruce's childhood was marked by fear, trauma, and emotional isolation. His father, a scientist, consumed by paranoia and rage, believed his own son was a genetic anomaly, something inhuman. He abused Bruce, both emotionally and physically, while his mother tried and failed to protect him. That violence would become the first seed of the monster to come. As Bruce grew, so did his mind. A prodigy in nuclear physics and biochemistry, Banner's intellect surpassed that of his peers and placed him at the forefront of experimental science. The US government took notice, offering him a key role in a top-secret project to develop a gamma-bamma weapon of unimaginable destructive power. For Bruce, it was a challenge worth solving. For the military, it was another tool of war. But Banner's motives were never about war. Deep down, he wanted to prove control over science, over nature, and perhaps over himself. The fateful day arrived. The gamma bomb was set for its first test in the New Mexico desert. Everything was calculated to perfection. Everything, except the unpredictable. A young man named Rick Jones had wandered onto the test site, a rebellious teenager, looking for a thrill. Bruce, without hesitation, sprinted into danger, shoved Rick into a trench, and absorbed the full force of the gamma radiation himself. He should have died, but instead, something impossible happened. That night, under the light of a full moon, Bruce Banner transformed for the first time. A creature emerged, towering, green-skinned, pulsating with raw strength. It wasn't just a mutation of flesh and muscle, it was rage incarnate. Repressed for years, buried beneath intellect and discipline, all of Bruce's bottled emotions surged forward, given monstrous form. The Hulk was born at first. The transformations were linked to nightfall, as if Bruce had become some sort of modern werewolf. But soon it became clear, the real trigger was emotional stress, especially anger. The more Bruce tried to suppress it, the more violently the Hulk would surface. It was as if the monster had waited years for the chance to break free. The military immediately saw the creature as a threat. General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, head of the Gamma Project and father of Bruce's love interest, Betty Ross, declared the Hulk an enemy of the state. What began as a scientific accident quickly escalated into a global manhunt. Bruce became a fugitive, running not only from the government, but from the monster within. In those early days, the Hulk was savage, almost mindless, speaking in broken words, acting on pure instinct. He leveled tanks, demolished bases, and battled superheroes sent to capture him. But even then, a glimmer of Bruce remained inside, a flicker of guilt, of restraint. The world saw a beast, but inside the beast was still a man. Over time, Banner discovered that the Hulk was not just a side effect. He was a manifestation of something deeper: childhood trauma, self-loathing, fury at the world and at himself. Every transformation wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The Hulk had a mind of his own, and not just one mind. Different versions began to emerge. The Savage Hulk, the childlike brute, most commonly known. The Grey Hulk, smarter, meaner, more selfish. Later, the Professor Hulk, a rare union of Bruce's intellect and Hulk's power. Each one a piece of Bruce's fractured identity. Each one a different answer to the same question. Who is Bruce Banner, really? A genius, a victim, a monster, or something entirely new? In the years that followed, Bruce's struggle would only grow. His body might survive gamma blasts, bullets, and gods, but his soul was slowly unraveling. And while the world feared what he could become, Bruce feared something far worse: that without the Hulk, he was nothing. The monster was born, but the man was still alive. And that man was running not just from the US military, but from the storm within his own mind. After the initial explosion that gave birth to the Hulk, Bruce Banner became one of the most hunted men on Earth. Branded as a threat to national security, he was pursued by tanks, jets, and some of the most advanced tracking systems known to man. But they didn't understand. No one did. Bruce wasn't the monster. He was its prisoner, haunted by guilt, remorse, and fear. Bruce disappeared into the underworld. From desert hideouts to remote villages, he lived a life of constant movement. He could never settle, never build, never loved, because the moment his emotions flared, the Hulk could surface. A stubbed toe, a raised voice, a nightmare. That's all it took. and when the Hulk emerged, everything around him burned. The Hulk was not evil. He didn't crave destruction for its own sake, but he was rage in its purest form, rage that had no outlet except annihilation, rage that didn't distinguish friend from foe unless someone he cared about was in danger. And Bruce cared about Betty Ross, about the lives lost when the Hulk went on a rampage, about the legacy of science turned into horror. He tried everything to suppress it: meditation, isolation, drugs, hypnosis, even magic. For a time, he worked with Dr. Strange, searching through the mystic arts for answers. Other times, he turned to Reed Richards and Charles Xavier. Brilliant men, kind men, but no one could separate the man from the beast. And the worst part, sometimes Bruce didn't want to be cured, because in the Hulk he found freedom, the kind of freedom he never had as a child. The Hulk didn't get pushed around. The Hulk didn't cry. The Hulk didn't fear anything. The Hulk was the voice Bruce had never used, the fists he had never raised, the power he had never dared to claim. And so began a cycle that would last for years. Bruce running, hiding, trying to cure himself. The Hulk smashing, fighting, surviving, and the world watching in horror awe. He crossed paths with other heroes, fought the Avengers, crushed Iron Man's Hulkbuster armor, took on Thor in open combat, battled the Thing of the Fantastic Four. More often than not, he won, because the angrier he got, the stronger he became. There was no ceiling to the Hulk's power that terrified people, but occasionally Bruce found peace in the arms of Betty, in the shelter of remote monasteries, in the quiet hum of a lab, when the world didn't know where he was. Those moments never lasted. Someone always found him, and when they did, the cycle began again. As the years passed, Bruce began to understand the Hulk more, not just as a physical reaction, but as a psychological construct. The Hulk wasn't just muscle, he was memory, trauma, suppression. There was a reason the first version of the Hulk spoke like a child, because that part of Bruce had never grown up. It had been locked away, screaming inside a cage. Other personas emerged. The Grey Hulk, smarter, more cunning, working as a bouncer in Las Vegas under the name Joe Fixit. Then came the Professor Hulk, a strange merging of Bruce's intellect with Hulk's brawn, created through intense therapy and brain integration. He was calmer, controlled. For a time, he functioned as a superhero part of the Avengers, even respected by S.H.I.E.L.D. But peace never lasted. The Hulk was never one thing. He was all things Bruce tried to hide. Every suppressed emotion had a form. Every buried trauma had fists. No matter how much Bruce tried to control him, the Hulk was always evolving, growing more powerful, more complex, more independent, and so was the world around him. Other gamma-powered beings emerged. The Abomination, a soldier turned monster with less restraint than Hulk. She-Hulk, Bruce's cousin, who gained Hulk-like powers but retained her humanity. The Leader, a man whose gamma exposure enhanced his mind instead of his body. The gamma world expanded, and so did the consequences. Bruce realized he was no longer alone, but that didn't bring comfort. It brought fear. Because if the Hulk was a product of gamma and trauma, then how many others were one bad day away from becoming monsters too? At the heart of it all, Bruce wrestled with one question. Was the Hulk his punishment, or his protector, a monster born of science, or a guardian born of necessity? The lines blurred, and the man who once wanted to be free of the Hulk began to wonder if the world might need him after all. Because sometimes, only a monster can stop. Another monster. And Bruce Banner. He had the biggest one of all. There are many names for the Hulk. The Green Goliath, the strongest there is, the Savage Beast. But only one name strikes fear into the hearts of gods and men alike. Worldbreaker. And it all began with betrayal. Bruce Banner had spent years trying to control the Hulk, trying to make peace with the beast inside. Eventually, he even found a fragile balance, fighting alongside the Avengers, helping to save the world, becoming something more than just a threat. But that balance came at a cost. The heroes around him still saw the Hulk as dangerous, unpredictable, a ticking bomb. And so, in a moment of greater good reasoning, the Illuminati secret council of Earth's most powerful minds, including Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Black Bolt, and Mr. Fantastic, made a decision that would change everything. They tricked Bruce Banner. They drugged him, and they launched him into space. Their plan was simple: send the Hulk to an uninhabited planet where he could finally be at peace, far from Earth. No more danger, No more destruction, just isolation. But they failed. The shuttle carrying Hulk was thrown off course. He crash-landed on a planet called Sakara, world torn by war, ruled by a tyrant, where gladiators fought for survival in brutal arenas. Weakened from the journey and enslaved by Sakara's technology, the Hulk was forced to fight, and he won, again and again, because that's what he does. Because even in chains, the Hulk is never truly broken. But something unexpected happened. He found a cause. He found allies, or the gladiators who, like him, had been torn from their homes and treated as tools. He found love. Her name was Kyra, a warrior of unmatched strength and honor. And for a brief moment in all his tortured existence, the Hulk found peace. He overthrew the Red King. He became Green King of Saka. He had a kingdom, a people, a future. And then, it was all taken from him. The shuttle that brought him to Saka self-destructed, detonating a gamer-fueled explosion that leveled the city and killed millions, including Kiara and the unborn child she carried. The Hulk was reborn in that fire, not as a protector, not as a hero, but as a force of vengeance. He blamed the Illuminati, and with good reason. They had sent him away. They had exiled him to die. And now they had taken everything he had ever loved. So he returned to Earth, but not as Bruce Banner, not even as the Hulk most knew. He returned as something else entirely, a being of unrelenting wrath, a being whose footsteps cracked the ground, whose presence bent gravity, whose heartbeat shook mountains. He returned as the Worldbreaker. His ship descended on Manhattan like a divine judgment. His message was simple: you have 24 hours, then we begin. He gave Earth a chance to evacuate, a chance to prepare. He was no longer mindless rage. He was cold, calculating, and terrifyingly focused. Hulk and his war-bound allies laid siege to Earth's heroes: Iron Man in his most powerful armor, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men. None stood a chance. He conquered Manhattan, turned Madison Square Garden into a gladiatorial arena, forced the Illuminati to fight for their lives as he had. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice, in the eyes of a creature who had been exiled, betrayed, and broken. But even gods have limits. When Hulk's fury neared planetary the Earth itself began to tremble under his rage. Bruce Banner finally surfaced. Deep inside the Hulk, the man was still there, watching. And when Hulk almost killed the world he had come to punish, Bruce took back control. He stopped it, because even in the darkest depths of his fury, Bruce Banner never truly disappeared. He was always there, reminding the Hulk, reminding himself of the line that could never be crossed. The damage was done. The world would never see the Hulk the same way again. Not as a brute, not as a joke, but as what he truly was. The strongest there is, the angriest, the most dangerous, a being who could destroy planets with his bare hands, and chose not to. That choice, more than any battle, was what defined the Worldbreaker. Because sometimes, true strength isn't in unleashing the monster, it's in knowing when to hold it back. After the dust of World War Hulk settled, and the world had witnessed the fury of the Worldbreaker, a question lingered in the air, not just for Bruce Banner, but for all who had seen what he was capable of. Was the Hulk truly a monster, or had he simply been shaped by a world that never let him be anything else? In the aftermath of his rampage, Banner was imprisoned deep below the Earth, in stasis, under heavy watch. But chains could never hold the Hulk for long. And truthfully, it wasn't the world that needed protecting from him, which was Bruce who needed to come to terms with himself. For decades, Bruce Banner had tried to separate his two halves, the man and the monster, the mind and the rage, the logic and the chaos. But no matter how many cures he tried, no matter how many versions of Hulk emerged, Grey, Savage, Professor, Devil, Immortal, they were all him. They were all pieces of the same broken soul. So eventually, Bruce stopped running. He stopped suppressing, and he started listening. Through meditation, therapy, even mystical intervention, Bruce began to understand the Hulk, not as a disease, but as a survival mechanism, a defense born from childhood trauma, a protector forged from pain. The Hulk had always been there, not to destroy Bruce, but to keep him alive. And in that realization came a new era. The Professor Hulk emerged, a fusion of Bruce's intelligence with the Hulk's body and power. No longer torn between extremes, he was able to think clearly, speak fluently, and act as a hero with the strength of a god. For the first time in his life, Bruce could walk in the sun without fear of losing control. He became an Avenger in full, a scientist, a strategist, a powerhouse. He fought alongside Earth's mightiest heroes not as a wildcard, but as a leader. And yet, balance was never easy to maintain. The Hulk's psyche was more than a two-way street. It was a shattered mirror, each piece reflecting a different trauma, a different instinct. Even after the fusion, darker forms continued to emerge. The Devil, Hulker cruel, protective entity, the immortal Hulker version that rose from death itself, tied to supernatural horror and ancient cosmic truths. In the pages of the Immortal Hulk, we saw the monster become something even more terrifying and more insightful. This Hulk was vengeful, righteous, driven by justice as much as fury. He faced down devils, corporate corruption, cosmic entities, and even God itself. And Bruce began to see himself as more than just a victim of his own mind. He was a man of layers, each one shaped by abuse, by brilliance, by loss, and by the impossible burden of surviving what no human should survive. He realized something profound. The Hulk wasn't the curse. The curse was never accepting him. As time went on, Hulk took on new forms. In the multiverse, we met versions even more extreme. Maestro, a future version where Hulk loses his morality and becomes a tyrant. Totally Awesome Hulk, with Amadeus Cho taking on the mantle with confidence. Planet Hulk 2, where the Hulk once again becomes a ruler and even a father. Titan Hulk, a berserker born from Bruce's latest attempt to weaponize the monster within. Each version showed that the Hulk was an idea, mutable, emotional, universal. He wasn't just Bruce Banner's shadow, he was humanity's. Because everyone has rage, everyone has trauma, everyone has a monster they try to control. The Hulk just wears his on the outside. And in that, we find the truth of the character. He is not the villain of his story. He is its battleground, a place where rage meets reason, power meets restraint, pain meets healing. In a universe filled with gods, aliens, and time travelers, Hulk remains one of the most human characters of all. He's not perfect, he's not always heroic, but he never stops fighting against enemies, against fate, and against the worst parts of himself. So the next time you see the green Goliath roaring through a battlefield, shaking the ground with each step, remember that inside that fury, there is a man, a boy, a genius, a victim, a survivor. He is Bruce Banner. He is the Hulk, and he is, and always will be, the strongest one there is.